Hello, friends. Chris Kelly here. Hey, it is that time of the week. Time to look at the market. What's going on in the market? Look at some stats. Maybe I did mention last week that I might have at least some form of a graphic that might show, hey, what is buying today and refinancing tomorrow or some point in the future look like versus just waiting. So I have a little graphic to share with you in that regard. So let's, of course, start with market stats. So I will minimize me and go right over to here. There we go. So a couple things. I mean, nothing dramatically different here. Like I said, these single digit adjustments week over week really are not very significant, but the market's just slower and behaving slower than even the slower that we've had. Some of that is, like I said, cyclical. So this is interesting. This number has gone up a bit, particularly the average, and this number has come down quite a bit. This is the first time the average sales price, so that's the average, that's the median. Basically, median kind of lops off the top X percent and the bottom X percent and gives you a little bit more I don't know if I want to use the word accurate, but it just gives you a little better picture of what's really going on. Because you could have a couple of stragglers out there that were on the market for, or sold for $4 million, and that's not really indicative of the market, and it screws up the averages, that kind of thing. So I like looking at both of them. What's nice about it in this case, this number hasn't dipped below 600 in months. So that's interesting, and that also kind of tells me that maybe the stuff that's selling isn't the higher price stuff. As a guy that has a couple of listings in that upper range, I can attest. Definitely slower in that particular price strata. Of course, depending on the circumstances, where it is, what it is, all of those things, but. The market pace, which is what this average / median days on market reflects, that's the pace or velocity of the market, slowing down. And again, is how much of that's cyclical. But it's, I looked up in the last month. I mean, this was not that long ago at 8. And more recently at 12. And this not long ago was at about 28 to 30. And now it's at 44. So the pace of the market in general has behaved slower in the last, say, 2 or 3, 4 weeks. Not dramatic, but definitely noteworthy. It will be interesting to see what the inventory in months for August looks like, which we won't get that for a couple weeks. But when it shows up, I'll obviously post that graphic so we can look at it over time to include the current month. I think we hit like 2.4 months in July, which again is still insanely fast, but it's just notably calmer than the 1.0 or 0.8 that we had during the frenetic time. So market's slowing up again, slowing up a bit, I should say. There's just less going on. Again, some of that's this time of year, school-based buying decisions have been made. And of course, interest rates, right? So that's not even the elephant in the room or the elephant under the carpet. It's just the thing. There's a great article, pretty good article, actually. I would say it's a pretty great article, but that I read this last week that talks a little bit about the history of rates and where they were and where they went to and why. And it's not too boring. So it's actually a decent read. So I'm going to attach that for your reading pleasure, and certainly happy to have a conversation around it. If you have any questions, by all means, let me know. Here's a copy. Let me flip over here. Nothing complicated, and that's important. I don't want to get too off into the weeds on some of this stuff because, for the normal person, they just kind of want to know what's going on in the market. They don't need a half an hour explanation. So all I did was, all we did here is just kind of put through a little exercise. What if somebody bought now at a price point, and what would it cost, and what would all the things look like, and then refinanced at some later date? Versus somebody just continuing to rent, assuming that's what they're doing, or live at home, or whatever their existing circumstances are, not buy, and then wait, let's just say the same amount of time to buy later. Um, and buying later really was more, it's not like buying in next months, it's more buy when the rates were down to a different place. So I just made the assumption for this exercise that somebody waited until rates hit the mid fives versus where rates have been, which is over 7, 7 and 8, 7 1/4, 7 3/8 in this example. So kind of shows you what the costs, of the basic cost breakdown of doing these things then and then refinancing later versus just the cost of waiting. There's definitely some additional cost. I think that's the thing that gets overlooked or at least not mentioned when people are talking about, doing something now versus later. And I think in all fairness, the extra cost has to be considered. However, the big change is, and granted, this is just assuming that prices did this, but I keep saying over and over, when rates go down notably, pricing is going to immediately go up fairly notably. So, the example here is that somebody bought a plus or minus $500,000 house, and then at some point later on, let's just say in the next couple of years or less, refinance that house. Well, what's that house worth then? Let's just say $600,000. At the rate we appreciated in the last 3 or 4 years, that's a pretty low estimate. I don't think we're going to see that kind of appreciation over the next couple of years. So this might be kind of the maximum that one would expect that to go up. However, if rates go down, that rate of appreciation is going to immediately change. And so that's why I used that $100,000 spread. And to be honest, the big benefit to the person buying now is that $100,000 spread or X $1,000 spread if we don't want to use a specific number. There's additional cost of doing it, but the appreciation in doing so would almost certainly way more than offset the cost of a refinance. A lot of lenders are starting to offer, and they loosely call them no-cost refis if you buy now. They're not totally no-cost refis. They're no origination fee refis, which an origination fee is just part of the costs of lending. It's not all of the cost. It's some of the cost. But nevertheless, there's a discounted cost to refinance being offered in the marketplace, or at least some parts of the marketplace. So that helps offset that refinance later expense. But the long and short of it is, and that's why I wanted to use a graphic, the long and short of it is what the cost of real estate is going to do over that time period and as interest rates come down is a pretty compelling reason to consider going through door 1 rather than waiting to go through door 2. I'm just saying. So anyway, I hope that is found to be helpful. And again, as always, I'm happy to talk about this stuff. Why? Because I love talking about this stuff. So if there are questions, concerns, hey, what did you mean by that? Or I think you're wrong and here's why, whatever it is, I'm happy to have that conversation. So anyway, it's a holiday weekend coming up. I hope you and yours have a terrific Labor Day weekend. My family and I are going to enjoy some camping in Central Oregon because that's kind of our favorite thing. And we'll look forward to seeing you here on the next one. So as I always say, until the next time.